It is Friday, so it's time for our national town hall meeting with Senator Bernie Sanders. Brunch with Bernie. Senator?
Tom, how are you?
I'm great. I understand you're on the road?
I am in Rutland, Vermont, and we have had just a great day. We had Secretary of Energy, Moniz, was with the Vermont delegation today, and the governor was with us earlier. And we took them to a community in Rutland where really fantastic things are happening in terms of energy efficiency.
That's great.
We went to a home, Tom, where as a result of weatherization, as a result of solar power, as a result of LED light bulbs, as a result of heat pumps, all of which were put in within a couple of weeks, this household is going to see about a $1,400 a year reduction in their energy bill.
Wow.
And they will use that money to pay back the loan that they got to make these changes. So it's not going to cost them a nickel.
Wow.
And over a period of years after they pay back that loan, then they enjoy the savings. So they're going to create a much more comfortable house, save a whole lot of money, and it doesn't end up costing them a penny. And what we try to convince the Secretary about is we think this is exactly what should be done all over the United States of America.
Well, you know, last week there was a day where Germany produced 74% of their electricity because for 10 years they had a program just like that for rooftop solar, a 10-year lease, and you pay it back by the power company buying the electricity back from you.
That's right. That's the most important point about energy, whether it's weatherization and energy efficiency or whether it's sustainable energy. Often the issue is that people need the upfront money to make the changes. But if you can, here in Rutland County also, we have a program where about 1,000 homes are being weatherized. On average, there will be about a 32% reduction in fuel, 32%. And the payback will vary depending on the house, but it could be 4, 5, 6 years. So by getting the upfront money, doing the weatherization, lowering your fuel bill, you pay back the loan, and then you enjoy the savings. But what we also do when we do that is we cut greenhouse gas emissions, and we also create jobs. So this idea of energy efficiency and weatherization is something that is working in Vermont. It's something that has to be expanded in Vermont. We have to do it all over the country.
The proverbial idea whose time has come. What else is going on in the country today that you'd like, that's on your mind?
I'm chairman of the Veterans Committee, and we had I think it was about a 4-hour hearing yesterday. We had Secretary Eric Shinseki before us and others. Let me just say a few words about the VA. Number one, the VA is the largest integrated healthcare system in the country. It's a huge system. And it takes care of about 6.5 million veterans every single year and over 200,000 every day. Can you imagine that?
That's incredible.
It is. With 151 medical centers and 900 primary healthcare facilities, et cetera, et cetera. In general, what the veterans organizations told us yesterday is that once people get into the system, the quality of care is quite good. And there are surveys out there which suggest that in many ways VA healthcare is as good or better than private medical systems. The problem they're having is access. The problem they're having is confusion over waiting lists. And this is an issue that we are addressing right now. The goal has got to be that when people come into the system, they can get health care in a reasonable period of time and enjoy the good quality health care which the system is providing. So we are going to continue working to make sure that VA health care remains strong. We continue to work on comprehensive legislation that would impact positively the lives of millions and millions of veterans. I introduced legislation a couple of months ago. We got 56 votes. I need 60 votes, and we're working to get the remaining 4. And I think I'll be bringing that bill up again. But as Memorial Day comes, I think we all want to remember the kinds of sacrifices that veterans and their families have made for this country, and to make sure that they get the health care and the benefits to which they are entitled.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are also this week, I'm sure an issue that you have been discussing is the issue of net neutrality.
Oh, boy, yeah.
If people want to go to my website, what they can do is what we have done is given people an opportunity to write. And this blows me away, Tom. If my memory is correct, we have over 17,000 people who have written messages, which we are then sending on to the FCC. I beg your pardon, it's over 19,000. Can you imagine that?
Wow. And that's just via one senator's website.
Yeah. These are 19,000 people who are writing opinions, giving views on net neutrality. And what we are doing is then sending those views right to the FCC. And I must imagine that they must, if we have provided 19,000, I can't help think they must have hundreds of thousands of people. And most people understand that the net is a huge instrument for democracy in a time when, in many ways, our country is becoming less and less democratic. So the net is there, and whether you're rich or poor, you are able to receive and send out stuff at the same speed. We don't want to see a situation where big companies are paying large amounts of money so that they can get faster service, and little guys get slower service. From an economic point of view, it is unfair. Walmart should not have an advantage over a small company. New York Times should not have an advantage over a small blog. So we are going to work very, very hard. It's an issue I feel very, very strongly about, and we will play an active role in making sure that we maintain net neutrality. Another issue that we dealt with this week, which will be coming up, I think, on the floor of the Senate fairly soon, has to deal with a really significant crisis in this country. And you hear it in Vermont, you hear it all over America. And that is, number one, the high cost of a college education. And secondly, the indebtedness that people have when they leave school or leave graduate school. So we held a press conference in Burlington on Monday, and I had with me about 5 or 6 students. And one young woman is a physician. She practices at a community health center. She went to college. She went to medical school. Do you know what her debt load is now? Take a guess, Tom.
If she went to medical school, it's probably over $100,000.
Oh, over $100,000? Try over $300,000.
Wow.
And, that's on the very high end. But it's not uncommon to talk to doctors, dentists, people who went to dental school, medical school, who are over $200,000 in debt. Average debt for a 4-year college graduate is, I believe, $29,000, somewhere around there. And that's average, so many have higher debt. The result of all of that is, number one, there are a lot of young people who are bright, who should be going to college, who want to go to college, who are looking at this and they're saying, you know what? Do I really want to leave school $50,000 or $60,000 in debt? So they're not going to college, and we lose their intellectual capabilities as we have to compete in a global economy, in a very competitive economy. That means if people are not getting the education that they should because they can't afford it, it makes us less economically competitive, and school here in the United States is much higher than any place else in the world. And second of all, when people come out of school deeply in debt, it impacts their choice of jobs. They will go to that job, not that they wanted to do, that they had their heart set on doing, but they'll go to that job that pays them the most money so they can repay their debt. So this is a very serious issue. College indebtedness now is more than credit card debt, and it's more than auto debt.
Wow.
And it is an issue that we have to address.
That's just so wrong. It's our intellectual infrastructure.
Exactly.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, our national town hall meeting with Senator Sanders. He'll be taking your calls right after the break.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And you can check out Bernie's website. Of course, he has a Facebook page and also sanders.senate.gov. And welcome back. Rafiq in Humble, Texas, watching Free Speech TV on the Direct TV satellite. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon.
First, I'd like to commend you and Tom for doing a great job because you got someone like me to come out of the shadows and hopefully become of some assistance to the Democratic Party. And I have a question regarding the lack of savvy, or at least what I feel, with the Democratic Party, because it doesn't seem that they capitalize on the opportunities, especially with the young voters, as compared to the smear campaign being done by the Republicans.
Well, first of all, thanks for the call. And if Tom and I have played a role in getting you politically involved, I think we're both pretty proud of that. Is that right, Tom?
Amen.
Because what we need in this country is to wake people up to the realization that increasingly, and you've heard me say this many times, we are moving away from a democracy to an oligarchy where the billionaire class, people with endless supplies of money, will control the economic and political life of this country. And the only antidote that I know to that is that millions and millions of people, especially young people and working people, get involved in the political process. So if Rafiq is now getting involved, I think that's great. I will respond in two ways to the comment. Number one, I think there is truth to that, and that is that while there are some absolutely great Democratic representatives and members of the Senate, and I work with them every day, and these folks, men and women, work really hard, and they are right on the issues. You have many others who are also impacted by big money, and in some cases whose views are not radically different from Republicans. So that's the first issue. The second issue is, and Tom and I have talked about this often, it is not that people are not talking about issues, it is that the media is not necessarily reporting what people are talking about. And it is harder than you think to get progressive views out and to talk about progressive ideas in the media as it's constituted right now. About 95% or more of talk radio is right-wing or extreme right-wing, and they have their agenda, and they push it very, very hard. And there are issues that they will talk about, and there are issues that they simply will not talk about. The fact that we have more wealth and income inequality in this country than any other country on earth, and worse than any time since the 1920s, you're not going to hear that much on national TV. And the fact that we have a trade policy which has cost us millions of decent-paying jobs because companies have outsourced and moved to China is not something you're going to hear a whole lot about. The fact that you have 1 out of 4 corporations in America not paying a nickel in taxes, including companies like General Electric in the last 5 years paying a nickel in federal income taxes, it's not something you're going to hear about. So some of the important issues that some of us raise where we talk about what goes on in America, it's not something that the corporate media is all that interested in reporting. But having said that, there's no question in my mind that the Democrats can and should do much better.
We'll be back with more of Senator Sanders, our Brunch with Bernie hour, more of Senator Sanders answering your questions right here on our National Town Hall meeting. Be sure to check out his website at sanders.senate.gov and, of course, over on Facebook. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, our national town hall meeting with the guy I think of as America's senator, Senator Sanders, and Charles in Opelika, Florida, listening on Progressive Voices channel on the TuneIn radio app. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Great.
Okay, great. My thing is really the stock market. Yesterday, I heard that the Dow was down a couple points because they got bad news from companies that we will lose, and I guess sales weren't as they were projected, and especially with Walmart. The thing I got to say about that is don't forget we cut the food stamps, and no matter what these big corporations are saying, let's not forget that they also do benefit by using these subsidies given to our citizens, just using food stamps. But my question, Senator Sanders, is this: how is dollar stores, family dollar stores, growing at a rapid rate is going to benefit and drive this our superpower economy? And the thing is, the reason why these stores are taking over, you see the Sears and these Kmart stores and down, is that people don't have enough money in their paychecks. You know, that's what we're asking for. We're asking that you can raise the minimum wage because, you know, we can't build a superpower economy on family dollar stores. It wasn't done so in the past, and we're not going to do it now in the 21st century.
Charles, thank you very much. I think Charles said it better than I can, but I think he hit the nail right on the head. Here's what's going on in the economy. Stores that cater to middle-class Americans, like Sears, I think J.C. Penney's, and others, are struggling. And the reason that they're struggling and the reason that they're closing down stores is that the middle class just does not have the money to kind of buy the goods that they used to buy. The main point that Charles is making, which is an absolutely correct point, is that about 70% of gross domestic product is dependent upon consumer spending. And if consumers, i.e. the middle class and working families and low-income people, don't have any income, they're not spending any money, and they're not helping to create or sustain jobs. In other words, my spending is your job. Paul Krugman wrote that from the New York Times in an article a few weeks ago, and I think, Tom, in one sentence, that pretty much expresses it.
It really does. Demand drives economy.
Spending is your job. Thom Hartmann gets advertising revenue that keeps him going, but if people are not buying the products that are advertised on his show, he loses his job. And that's the way it goes. If you don't have enough money to walk into a restaurant, then the restaurant shuts down. Or if you don't have enough money to buy a new pair of shoes, and the shoe store shuts down. And that is called demand-side spending. And what is happening in America, as more and more people leave the middle class and go to the ranks of the poor, as the safety net is cut in terms of food stamps, as Charles mentioned, or extended unemployment. Right now, you have people who are long-term unemployed who are not getting, as used to be the case, because we couldn't get any Republican support for it, they are not getting unemployment checks. Well, if they don't have that unemployment check to spend in their community, less revenue is flowing in that community, fewer jobs. So the point that Charles is making, if I can extrapolate, is that we need to put money into the hands of working people who desperately need it right now. We need to do it by raising the minimum wage, absolutely. We need to do that by developing a strong jobs program which creates millions of jobs, and one way we do that is by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, that's roads, bridges, rail system, water systems, wastewater plants, create millions of jobs doing that. And that is the way you get the economy moving. You do not, in my view, get the economy moving by trickle-down economics, by giving tax breaks to billionaires. I think it's a false ideology. I think it hasn't worked. I think the only result of that approach is to make the very, very wealthy even wealthier.
Pat in Dixon, Illinois. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes. My question, hi, both of you. I love both of you. My question is, we pay or, subsidize Walmart and McDonald's and all these people for food stamps and everything. Why doesn't the government, the federal or state government, send a bill to these, like Walmart or McDonald's or something, to get this money back?
Well, Pat, that's a great question. And I hope everybody understands what that question is about. What Pat is saying is, isn't it a little bit crazy that the taxpayers of this country, middle-class, working-class people, have to pay taxes in order to provide food stamps or Medicaid or affordable housing for working people who are employed in jobs that pay them inadequate wages? So you have Walmart, which is a beautiful example, because Walmart is owned by the wealthiest family in the country. It's called the Walton family. They are worth approximately $140 billion. Does it really make sense that somebody who's listening to this show, who's earning $40,000 a year or $30,000 a year is paying taxes to subsidize the wealthiest family in the country? And the answer is, of course, it makes no sense whatsoever. So what we need to do is to raise the minimum wage to a living wage so that the people who work in Walmart, who work in McDonald's, who work in Burger King can earn a decent wage. You know, I heard something that was interesting the other day, Tom. And when they earn that decent wage, then the government does not have to provide them with food stamps or other forms of help. I heard something that was interesting. I don't know if you discussed it on the show, but in, I think it was Denmark, where workers are organized, in McDonald's they were making something like $21 an hour.
There's one of their Walmart or one of their McDonald's workers who talked about this in the media, and we're trying to book that person for the show right now. Sean is in touch with her, I think it is.
The point being, in states which have heavy unionization, guess what?
You get decent.
McDonald's can pay a living wage.
Yeah, there you go. We had somebody yesterday, Bernie, called the show and suggested that there be a tax on corporations, that they be denied tax breaks to the extent that their employees use food stamps, for example.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
I'm getting stepped on by my own liners. I'm sorry, Bernie. We'll be right back with Senator Sanders. Sanders.senate.gov. Check out his website. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, the True People's Media. And it's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls in our National Town Hall meeting. Bernie, you're still with us?
Right here.
Okay, great. Bill in Nashville, Tennessee, you're on the air, Senator Sanders.
Oh, yes. I was, Senator Sanders, I've always appreciated your independent point of view and trying to buck the partisan tidal wave that happens down there in Washington, and it doesn't seem to be very functional. But have you ever given any thought to trying a presidential run? That's the only question I had, so I'll just hang up and let you comment in that regard.
Well, as I've discussed on the show and elsewhere, yes. I am giving some thought to that. In fact, I'll be in Iowa tomorrow. But I've got a long way to go before I make a final decision, because running a presidential race is very difficult. It's very expensive. And I have to ascertain whether there is the kind of grassroots support necessary all over this country for the kind of progressive agenda that I would be running on. So, Bill, we are thinking about it, and we're going to do a little bit of traveling and just get a sense of what kind of support there is out there.
Dan in Spokane, Washington. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, Senator Sanders. One thing that has always puzzled me, why is it that one person, like Paul Ryan, writes the proposed budget rather than a group of senators and congressmen, which would seem a little more balanced to me, and does everything in his bill become law?
No, Dan. It's called the Ryan budget because he's the chairman of the committee. It doesn't mean that he writes it alone. But what does happen is essentially, not always, but most of the time, the majority party writes the budget. In the case of the House, it is the Republican, it would be the Republican Party. So the Republicans have the majority on all committees, Democrats in the House, Democrats are the majority on all committees in the Senate. And Ryan himself heavily influences the budget. It's not totally his, but it's heavily his. The Ryan budget, which to my mind was a disastrous budget, which gives more tax breaks to the rich, spends more money on the military, ends Medicare as we know it, makes massive cuts in Medicaid and many other very important programs for working people. That is a disastrous budget. It did pass the House, but it's going to go nowhere in a hurry because it would never pass the Senate. So it is a budget, though, I think, which tells you the priorities of the Republican Party, which is to continue their war against working people while giving more tax breaks to the wealthy and large corporations.
Wayne in Granby, Mass., neck of the woods where Senator Sanders and I were last weekend, listening on WHMP. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, guys, and it was a thrill seeing both of you last weekend.
Oh, great. Thank you.
My question is, I guess, kind of rhetorical. I mean, we hear all the talk about global warming, and yes, the vast majority of scientists, people in the know that it's happening. Where in the world are the people on the right getting their air and water from? Some different source that we don't have that makes it clean? I mean, this is a silly question, I suppose, but what in the world do they think they're going to be breathing in 50 years or drinking in 50 years?
Well, Wayne, you've asked a good question, I think, and it's a really troubling question, and I'll tell you why. You know, honest people have honest differences of opinion. You have a lot of honest conservatives there who, you know, don't like Medicare, or they don't like Social Security, or they want to cut federal aid to education and so forth and so on. People have differences of opinion. But what does bother me very much is when you have virtually an entire political party, i.e. the Republican Party, which is now rejecting science. They're rejecting science. So this, you know, when we talk about climate change and global warming, it's not Thom Hartmann talking about it. It's not Bernie Sanders talking about it. It is the overwhelming majority of scientists, not only in the United States, but throughout the world, who are saying that climate change is real. It is caused significantly by human activity. It is already causing devastating problems. And what we're seeing every day in the papers now, and reports and studies are coming out, it's only going to get worse and much worse in years to come. That's not politics. That's science. And what amazes me is you have Republicans, I don't see them attacking research in cancer. I don't see them attacking research in heart disease. I don't see them attacking research in other areas of science. Why are they going after climate change science? And I will tell you what I think the answer is. I think the answer is that the big energy companies and folks like the Koch brothers, who make most of their money in fossil fuel, are determined to do everything that they can to prevent us from moving away from fossil fuel, from coal, from oil, from gas, and into sustainable energy, into energy efficiency. And they are prepared to spend huge sums of money supporting candidates who hold that view. And I think that is one reason why you have an entire party heavily dependent upon the Koch brothers and others for their funding that choose to reject the science of climate change.
Lindsay in Highland, Indiana. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi. I have a question. I think everyone always talks about free college, and I think that's really great, and I think it should be that way. But a really basic thing that's never touched on, and I think education on the topic is important for people to understand, is how is it paid for then? You know, the overhead, the salaries, keeping the lights on.
Okay.
How is that addressed?
Okay, good question, Lindsay. Here's what happens. You know, 120, 130 years ago in the United States, most working class children did not go to school. They didn't go to high school. People worked on farms, people worked in factories, people worked in fields. But what happened 120, 150 years ago in America is only the wealthy went to school. They went to private academies. They went to college. And then what happened, there was an evolution. And working class families said, you know what, I want my kid to do better than I have, and I want my kid to get a good education. And out of that came the concept of public education. And what public education in all of the states said, it varied state by state, but what it said is, look, education should be a right, R-I-G-H-T, of all children regardless of income. And so public schools were established. And that was true 100 years ago. It's true today that when a kid walks into a public school, nobody says, well, you can't come in because you got to pay $50 to get into school today. It is free. Now, is it free? Is it not paid for? Of course it's paid for. It's paid for out of the tax base. In our country, it's paid through significantly local taxes, often property taxes. It's paid sometimes by county taxes, certainly by state taxes, and often by federal taxes. But it's paid by taxes. Now, what other countries have said is, Well, it's great that people can go to free high school, free elementary school, but in this day and age, we should make college also free for the individual, because we need to have, in Scandinavia, in France, in Germany, we need to have the best educated workforce possible. And we think it's dumb for our country that you have bright kids who have a lot to contribute to the economy not being able to get an education. So we're going to provide that education for them. And by the way, it wasn't just European countries or Scandinavian countries. In America in the 1950s, 1960s, do you know how much the University of California cost? Tom,
Zero.
do you remember how much
Oh,
it cost?
I hitchhiked out there to visit a bunch of friends of mine from Michigan who moved out there to go to college for free.
For free. So this is not, this is not when I was talking about, Denmark or Sweden. We're talking about the United States of America in the 50s and the 60s. And our country at that point, not our country, certain states, California did, New York City did, Vermont state colleges were either free or very inexpensive. I think it was true all over the country. Yeah. But then what happened, because of economic problems, states had to cut back. They said, well, we're not going to provide free education. You're going to have to pay a little in tuition. Every year it went up and up. And now you're in the absurd situation where to go to where the best schools in America cost $50,000 or $60,000 a year. And people are coming out of school hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. So to answer your question, Lindsay, of course it's not free. Nothing is free. But we have to make a decision as a country as to whether or not we want the best educated nation in the world. We used to be that. We used to have more people, higher percentage of people graduating college in the United States, any other country on earth. Today we're in about 12th place, and that is not a good position to be in. So I do believe that we have to move in that direction. You're not going to have that overnight. And in fact, I'll be introducing legislation that moves us in that direction. But what we also have to do now is get a handle on student loans. Interest rates all over this country are much, much too high. There'll be legislation on the floor which will give people the right to refinance their loans at significantly lower rates than they're paying right now. So it's a big issue. It's a big issue. We start small by lowering student loans. We move bigger by saying, yes, in America, regardless of your income, you should be able to get a college education.
We just have about 30 seconds. I saw an interesting statistic the other day, Senator. Before Ronald Reagan's presidency, and for decades, maybe a century before that, about 80% of the total cost of colleges in the United States was paid for by state, local, federal governments or college endowments. 20% was tuition. Now, 33 years later, it has completely reversed. 80% of the costs are paid for by tuition. 20% is endowments. And
if I'm not mistaken, Tom, in terms of that statistic, we demand far more from the individual than any other country on earth.
Yes, yeah, any other developed country.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we're there with Namibia or something. It's just incredible. Senator Sanders is with us. Senator Bernie Sanders. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, our national town hall meeting. Senator Sanders answering your questions. Be sure to check out his websites. They've got a Facebook page, and also, of course, Sanders.senate.gov.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
That was Sanders.senate.gov, and you can find Bernie's Facebook page quite easily. And welcome back. Brenda, watching Free Speech TV in Golden, Colorado. You are on the air with Senator Bernie Sanders.
Yes, I would like to know how the progressives can be better organized. I want to support progressives. I'm interested in what Lawrence Lessig did last week, but there's too many small groups. Where should I put my money? I only have a little to give.
Oof. Well, that's a hard question, Brenda. How do progressives become better organized? Well, I think for a start looking around your community. Find people who share your perspectives, and start reaching out to more and more people. And I think at the end of the day, we have to do it community by community by community. The one point that I would make, Brenda, and this is not a good answer to your question, is that I want you to know that what we believe, which is that we have to do something about this terrible income and wealth inequality, that every American is entitled to health care as a right, that climate change is wrong, and that we've got to address the need to reduce carbon emissions. that we have to make college affordable. All of those are issues not just that quote-unquote progressives believe in. Those are issues that the vast majority of the American people believe in. So what we have got to do in a way that we have not done before is just reach out and educate and organize. I don't, know what community you're in, but there are, I will guarantee you, there are like-minded people there, and you've got to figure out how you get organizations started and how you get people involved politically. As I mentioned earlier, in the coming election, we estimate that 60% of the American people will not vote. In some states, that number is even higher than that. And among low-income and working people, the number is much higher. We're talking about 70, 80% of low-income people not voting in an election, and they have the most at stake. How do we bring those people into the political process? That's the challenge. We're going to have to do it community by community by community.
Arthur in Cons Malden, Mass. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Thanks for watching Free Speech TV.
Hi, it's Malden, Massachusetts.
Oh, Malden.
It's near Boston. Okay. As you know, Senator Sanders, I'm grateful, and also to you, Mr. Hartman. And as you know, the U.S. veterans who have low or no income are eligible for subsidized health care through the VA. I'm an Army veteran with 9 years of service, having spent years in Iraq and Germany. And when I came home in 2005 to Orlando, Florida, I decided to go to college rather than find a job. I had no income. While living in Orlando, I visited the VA clinic there, but nobody there made me aware that people with low or no income are eligible for subsidized health care through the VA. Now, since then, I found out. I moved to Massachusetts, which is why I'm calling from Boston area, and the VA Boston informed me that I was eligible for free medical care, which I have now been accessing. A few months ago, I got a letter from the VA stating that eligibility is now redirected to Social Security, which means if I get Social Security, I'm automatically eligible. They already, so I don't have to fill out those applications anymore. I was just wondering how this might change the way that U.S. military war veterans find out how they could be eligible for free health care.
Arthur, thank you very much. I mean, what you are addressing is an issue that I've been trying to do some work on.
Let's pick this up on the other side of the break, Bernie. We'll restate the question real quickly. So we'll be right back with Senator Sanders. Arthur, thank you for the call. I'm sorry I missed the time cue on that. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. And Bernie, a veteran just called with a question about how do veterans find out about eligibility, particularly low-income veterans.
That is an issue as chairman of the Veterans Committee that I've been working hard on, and that is we need to do better outreach. The VA needs to do better outreach to make sure that every veteran in this country knows what he or she is entitled to. There has been some improvement in recent years. Their website is a lot better than it used to be. Still have a long way to go. The problem is that VA eligibility over the years has changed significantly. During the Clinton years, for example, as I recall, Clinton virtually opened up the VA to almost any veteran. Many, many veterans came in. The system got swamped. There were waiting lines that were too long. Under Bush, they closed it down. In my view, and we have legislation that would do it, we would open it up again, making sure that we have adequate staffing. But the problem is those numbers, eligibility changes over the years, and it's kind of a complicated formula. But what I would suggest, Arthur, is, for a start, people who have questions about whether they are eligible for VA health care, and Arthur is absolutely right. Certainly those people have service-connected problems. So you were injured as part of the U.S. military, hurt in war, you are certainly eligible for VA health care. But low-income veterans also are eligible. To find out about eligibility, for a start, go to the VA website, or you can call up the VA.
David in Chicago, listening to WCPT. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. David?
Oh, hi.
Hey.
Sorry about that. You cut out there in the beginning of it. Couldn't hear what you said. I had a question about the minimum wage thing you're trying to put through. Now we know that Walmart and many of them are most likely, if you do get to when you get to $15 an hour, what they'll end up doing is just giving people only 2 days a week, which is going to put them right where they are now anyway. So I was wondering if in that legislation you could put in something along the lines of a, $15 an hour or say $31,000 a year, whichever is greater, and therefore, keeping it where we want it to be.
Minimum salary as well as a minimum wage.
Yes.
Well, that's a good question. I'm not quite sure how one can do that. I think all I can say right now is that the immediate task in front of us, and $15 is very ambitious. Seattle, and I take my hat off to them, I believe will pass a $15 an hour minimum wage, but that is not going to go into effect until a couple of years. It will gradually go up. Vermont just passed a minimum wage increase as well, which will take us over 10.10. And I hear David's legitimate concern, but it is not necessarily so easy, David, for companies to run everybody on part-time. But I think the goal right now that we have to focus on is to raise the minimum wage. We got a $10.10 bill on the floor of the Senate. We are going to keep fighting for that. The national minimum wage is $7.25, which is a starvation wage. 10 would be a step forward, and then we go further than that. Right now where we are is we have virtually no Republican support, but I think pressure is beginning to build. Mitt Romney, of all people, came out and said, well, yeah, I think we should raise the minimum wage. Tim Pawlenty of Minnesota came out and said that. Rick Santorum came out recently and said that. So these are conservative Republicans who understand that the optics of Republicans not willing to raise what amounts to a starvation wage at $7.25 looks pretty bad for them. So I think at the end of the day, we are going to win it, but it is certainly at this point not going to be anywhere near $15 an hour.
Cindy in Euclid, Ohio. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Great honor to speak to both you gentlemen. Senator Sanders, I have a question about the charter schools. If they might, down the line, lead to some kind of redistricting and solidifying of power to the wealthy districts, gerrymandering, and so forth.
Well, I'm not quite sure I understand that question. I don't know that charter schools have much to do with gerrymandering.
I think Cindy, maybe because you vote in your local public school, is confusing school districts with voting districts.
Yeah, I don't think so, Cindy. I mean, there's a lot of debate about the wisdom or lack of wisdom of charter schools. There's a heck of a lot of discussion about gerrymandering. And gerrymandering is I think most listeners know, every 10 years, legislatures are able to change legislative districts. And, theoretically, a district is supposed to be made up of contiguous communities. But what Republicans have, it's always been done, but what Republicans have taken to a new level is carving out these very, very weirdly shaped districts to make sure that politically they are able to maximize the vote by doing that. So they figure out ways that they gain additional seats for their legislatures or their houses of representatives. And that is a very, very serious issue, which I think we have to deal with both legally and legislatively.
Senator, we have a minute and a half left. It's really not enough to get a caller in. Your thoughts for the end of the week?
Well, my thoughts for the end of the week is that I want to go back to a point that we talked about a moment ago. The pundits tell us, Tom, that in the coming election, about 60% of the American people are not going to vote. Younger people, the number is higher. Lower-income people, the number is higher. So you're talking about maybe 70, 80% of low-income people and younger people not participating. Meanwhile, on the other hand, we hear that the billionaire family, the Koch brothers and others, are prepared to spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So you add those two facts together, the billionaires are going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars supporting candidates who want to cut food stamps, cut Medicaid, cut federal aid to education, deny the reality of climate change, and then you have young people and working people not voting. That is a very, very dangerous dynamic, a very dangerous dynamic. That means big money dominates what happens and working people have no say in what happens. So my message is that people have got to understand that what happens in Washington is of enormous consequence. And we've got to get involved politically. We've got to make sure that our family and our friends come out and vote. We're going to fight for the best candidates that we can find.
Senator, thanks so much for everything you do, and especially for coming on this program. Thank you.
Tom, thank you. Take care.
Great talking.